Now, most of us have waited our entire lives to come talk about this issue at the White House, so we didn't schedule breaks. But if you need to take a break, I just wanted to point out the bathrooms are right across the hall. Be quick, because we're going to switch to our next panel. Very good. So it's my honor. Let me tell you a little bit about what we've done kind of structurally with our panels the rest of the day. This is not the first White House event that I've been to. I'm quite honored to be able to come over frequently. We wanted very much in this particular event to do something a little bit different, which was keep you all together as we have these conversations. Another format that's common when we do White House events is to break into smaller working groups. But it's really important that we tackle this problem together and that we learn from each other and that our outputs will be stronger if we stay together. So we will keep you here today, this morning. We will move to another location this afternoon, which we'll tell you about, a little bit bigger for us. But we will keep you all together because we're hoping to encourage new partnerships and new conversations in this effort and not breaking out into smaller groups. So it's my pleasure now to introduce to you Edwin Walker. Edwin is the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Aging at the Administration on Aging, which is a part of our new organization, the Administration for Community Living. Edwin has been at AOA for 20 years. He is, and I think it's described in his bio, as the consummate career professional. And this is very much the case. Edwin and I really enjoy working together, and we, as longtime government officials, are so excited to be here today and be able to do this. Edwin, before I was sworn in and appointed as Assistant Secretary, Edwin served as Acting Assistant Secretary, and this event would not be possible without Edwin. There are things that I can do, but there are things Edwin can do, and they're very different lists. He has been in Washington a long time and can help us get things done, and is simply a tremendous voice and advocate on behalf of seniors. He's going to introduce the panelists and help moderate the rest of the morning. So thank you, Edwin. I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Kathy. It is indeed a pleasure to be here this morning. And I just have a couple of remarks before we turn to the panel. And my first remark, because I have been in Washington for 20 years, back in Washington for 20 years, having been in Missouri for 12 years, loved it the whole time I was there, but it's nice to come home, as you indicated. I want to ensure that none of you here in the room today, or those of you watching through the many watch parties across the country and throughout the world, I don't want any of you to let the significance of this day go or under noticed. It is a tremendous effort and is incredibly significant in the field of elder abuse, neglect, and exploitation, and the broad area of elder justice. So many of you have been in this fight for so many years, struggling and trying to get attention brought to this issue, an issue that's been silent for far too long. And today is an incredibly significant event. You have heard key messages already. You've heard tragic stories already. You will hear and see many more of those throughout the course of today. But that was exactly our intent. We believe that this issue needs a voice louder than ever before, and this is a time for this issue to be heard throughout this country. You've also heard about big initiatives, and we are so pleased that we have a number of big initiatives. Those are also significant today, and we are going to continue to need big initiatives because we have a big problem. And we need truly a comprehensive approach, a comprehensive solution that involves every single sector and every individual in this country if we hope to do what we know we want to do, which is to address and prevent elder abuse, neglect, and exploitation. So I'm just pleased, again, that you are all here today, that you are watching today, and we just will continue to ask you repeatedly to join with us and join each other here in Washington, in every state, in every community throughout the country to address this issue. Without further ado, we want to begin with the first panel for the day. And our first speaker is Dr. Laura Mosqueda. She is known as one of the best doctors in America in the area of geriatrics. She serves as chair and professor of family medicine and director of geriatrics at the University of California, Irvine School of Medicine. She leads clinical care there, research, and teaching on improving care for older adults. She's clearly known as a national leader in the area of prevention of elder abuse, neglect, and exploitation because of her groundbreaking research in this area. She also co-leads the UCI's Center of Excellence on Elder Abuse and Neglect. But those of us at the Administration on Aging, Administration for Community Living, are particularly pleased that she co-directs our National Center on Elder Abuse. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Laura Mosqueda.
Thank you. Good morning. You still awake? All right, good. Well, I hate to give away a real boffo ending to my little talk here, but I'm going to tell you the 3 points that I hope all of you will take to heart by the end of my presentation. The first is that aging is often accompanied by physical, emotional, and cognitive changes that make us more likely to become victimized as we get older. The second is that financial abuse hurts older adults and those who love them more deeply and more severely than many of us realize. Some of us in this room might have a glimpse into it, which is good, but I think it's even more than we typically imagine, and certainly more than is understood by the community at large. And it even causes death. Elder abuse and financial elder abuse causes death. And the third thing I want you to take away is that we can put a huge dent in this awful problem if we work together. So let's explore these issues just a little bit. Fear of losing independence, fear of being placed in a nursing home, fear of being left alone, changes in cognition, all of these things can make older adults more susceptible to undue influence and criminal abuse. And then shame that you fell for a scam artist, embarrassment that your own family would do this to you, all make it harder to admit that this even happened and then to take action. That's why they don't want to get up on the stand and prosecute their own grandson. I just want to focus on cognition and capacity for a few minutes because I'm sharing the podium with an outstanding group of folks from the financial industry, which is a little intimidating to me as a medical doctor, but I got over my fear of lawyers, so I'm handling this pretty well. Thank you very much. And I wanted to talk for just a minute about cognition and capacity because this is such an important issue that comes up over and over again, I think, in the financial industry. The likelihood of dementia increases exponentially as we get older. And I think as we've talked about, there are a lot of older adults in the United States, and the fastest growing segment of the population are people over the age of 85. And about half of those people over the age of 85 have a dementing illness. That also needs to remind us that that means that half don't, and they don't like it if you treat them as though they did. And just as a reminder, dementia is a syndrome. It causes loss of memory, loss of other cognitive skills, such as judgment and reasoning, the kinds of things you can't see. You can't do a physical exam and find those sorts of things. And these things cause enough impairment, the loss of memory and loss of other cognitive functions, so that you can't do what you used to be able to do. You can't do your usual activities. Now, the most common cause of dementia is Alzheimer's disease. But by the time someone is diagnosed with a dementia, there's already a lot of brain damage that has occurred. And for many older adults, cognition can be impaired in subtle ways, so that dementia is not present, but there is some measurable impairment that we can find. And sometimes this is referred to as mild cognitive impairment. Tests such as the mini mental status exam are really lousy at predicting capacity to make financial decisions. Yet they're still used, I would say, too often when we're assessing people for these kinds of issues. Unless the person really tanks and does very poorly, it's hard to tell. I've seen people with significant impairment in judgment and reasoning who scored normally on tests such as the mini mental state exam. So we know that the capacity to make financial decisions can be impaired without the presence of a dementing illness. We also know that people who are lonely, fearful, isolated, may be manipulated quite easily into making decisions that lead them down a very dangerous path. And that's when we get into issues such as undue influence as well. Sherry Kaplan is a vice chancellor at the University of California, Irvine, and she's given me permission to tell the story of her mom, who's 86 years old. She was living independently in her home for 53 years. She noticed a leak and called a plumber. The family had noticed maybe just a little slipping in mom's memory, but she was still functioning independently and doing well. Well, he came out and gave her a $1,200 estimate, which started to escalate, and I've seen copies of the bills where things get crossed out and the price keeps going up until it became over $16,000. She didn't want to tell her two kids, both of whom lived about 90 minutes away. Initially, she didn't tell them anything about it because she wanted to be independent and handle it on her own. And then she didn't tell them about it because she was so embarrassed that this had happened to her. The plumber kept calling her, threatened to put a lien on her house. She became afraid to go outside because he was knocking on her door and demanding payment. She then missed physician appointments. She didn't continue to get her medications because she was afraid to go out and get her medications filled. She stopped answering the phone because of the threatening phone calls she was receiving. And then the family came over because mom didn't answer the phone. They found her in florid heart failure. She was admitted to the hospital immediately by calling 911, and now she lives in a nursing home. I can guarantee you that no physician in that nursing home knows that the cause of this was financial abuse. But dollars to donuts, that was the cause. And there are many stories like this. Elaine Dodd, who's on this panel, has multiple similar stories, as do the other panel stories, and the panelists. And I really agree with what you said when you said these people seem to be dying of broken hearts. And I think that's true. I've been on house calls through our Elder Abuse Forensics Center at UC Irvine, where literally not 90 seconds would go by when that person's phone wasn't ringing, offering her something, telling her she's won something, telling her that if she just sent in some money, she could get something back. Absolutely extraordinary when you sit there and just hear the phone ringing and ringing and ringing. We have to remember that the people who financially abuse elders often abuse them in other ways as well. Emotionally, like with Sherry's mom, she was absolutely terrified. Physically, I still remember an 88-year-old woman who told me of her incredible fear when her grandson sat on the edge of her bed holding a large knife and suggesting that she sign over her car to him. Neglect also occurs concomitantly with financial abuse. People who live in an elder's home because it's a free place for them to live, it's very handy to be able to steal grandma's Social Security check. And what you find is a house that looks like it's perfectly nice. You get into the elder's home with the help of police and our wonderful Adult Protective Service folks and find just filthy, stenchy kinds of conditions that the elder is living in. This is what's really, really happening in our community. Because this is such a complicated, pervasive, and important issue, we must find new ways to work together. Financial institutions, adult protective services, the medical community, legal community, civil and criminal, long-term care ombudsmen, social service agencies, and others. We have to help each other do a better job and help each other understand why we're getting so frustrated with that elder who just won't cooperate, they just won't testify, why are they making such a stupid decision? And we have to then remind each other of the emotional and physical toll that financial abuse takes on elders, their loved ones, and really our whole society. So we have to collaborate more, not even beyond just with each other in terms of our other disciplines, but I think even more so within our disciplines, so we're not having people reinvent the wheel. So you're going to hear in just a moment from three people who really are doing something within the banking industry, educating consumers, working with their community to make a difference. I want to return to our three take-home messages that I hope you are going to take to heart. One is that aging is accompanied by changes that make us more likely to be victimized. The second, that financial abuse hurts and even kills older adults. And the third is that we can put a huge dent in this awful problem if we work together. You'll hear this afternoon from an amazing group of folks on a panel talking about interventions a variety of interdisciplinary teams that they run. We're also going to be launching something today. You'll hear about a social justice movement that we're launching called the Ageless Alliance, United Against Elder Abuse, bringing together people of all ages, of all backgrounds, starting a grassroots movement across the country so that all of us will have easier outreach and to the people that we are here to serve, and so that those people who are here to serve can also tell us what they really need. So I think all of us can do something to prevent elder abuse, detect it in an early stage, and especially if we join forces, and I suggest we start now. Thank you.
That was great. Let me explain a little about the panel in terms of the format. We're going to have each of the members of the panel speak, and while they're speaking, I want you to begin to think of your questions and your comments. For those of you in the room, you would come to the 2 mics in the room, and for those of you watching online, we would ask that you begin sending in your Twitter questions to #ProtectSeniors. And so, without further ado, I want to turn to our second speaker, Rebecca Rangel. She is the Senior Vice President and Community Affairs Manager at Bank of the West. Also, she's a trustee of their charitable foundation. Previously, she served as the legislative assistant to then Congresswoman Hilda Solis. She provides ongoing consultation and research to a number of notable institutions. Without further ado, Rebecca, please come forward.
Thank you, Edwin, and thank you also to Laura for providing that context for us. We will now turn to looking at strategies to address the prevention of financial elder abuse and to address it generally. These strategies can be categorized in the following 4 areas: education and outreach, detection and screening, legal interventions, and community responses via multidisciplinary teams. And we'll address these throughout the day. My presentation will focus on the education and outreach, which the key elements I've outlined here. Starting at the top, the first key element of an education program should be that it have a specific target audience, meaning that you go beyond older Americans. So who within that population are you seeking to educate? For example, does your target population speak English, or are they proficient in another language? Perhaps it's more effective to deliver that service in another language. Are there cultural elements that need to be considered? Perhaps a discomfort with disclosing personal financial matters, or divulging that a family member is actually the perpetrator is more pronounced in certain cultures. It may be also helpful to look at particularly vulnerable populations that are often overlooked, such as LGBT elders or undocumented older adults. The important takeaway here is that you be thoughtful about who you're seeking to address and that you ensure that your message is tailored to them. The second element here, which seems obvious, but sometimes the obvious is worth stating, is that you specifically draw out that it's financial elder abuse as opposed to addressing elder abuse more generally. So that means defining what financial exploitation is and providing very clear examples of current scams and fraud schemes. This allows the senior to identify with what's happening and can more easily perhaps prevent the crime or identify if they're already victims. So we have our clear target audience. We define financial elder abuse. It's now very important to be very intentional about our message. And the most important thing about the message here is that it be actionable, that the seniors can do something, that they're empowered by this education. If we don't lead our seniors to take action, then we fail them. The information for the sake of information isn't helpful. It's that they do something about their situation. So what we want them to do is determine how, 1, they can protect their assets, and then 2, report crime if they're already victims. I would also encourage when developing the message to be concise. There's some research that's found that a 2-sentence campaign can be more effective than denser brochures, where you distract from actually connecting the elder to resources. So does it matter who delivers this message? Yes, it matters who delivers this message and where it's delivered. So it's important to leverage existed trusted sources of information. And these have been mentioned today. They can be local governments, law enforcement, adult protective services, financial institutions, nonprofits, senior centers, places of worship. But the host organization may vary depending from population to population. But it's important to meet seniors where they naturally congregate and use existed sources of news that they already trust. All of this work, of course, is more effective, as has been mentioned, when delivered in partnership. And we all represent important contributors to this awareness, but we ourselves cannot do it. And I didn't think this has been stated, but it's worth reinforcing that we really do need each other to advance this problem and address it, because it is so under-recognized and underreported. But we also need our citizenry behind us, and there needs to be greater consciousness about this issue. And so while you have a targeted audience, it's important that it reach the mass public, that it reach caretakers and family members and mandated reporters. So let's move on to some specific examples of campaigns that I think have been particularly successful. If you were in San Francisco this past May, you would have noticed these older Americans staring back at you on buses and bus shelters. I myself ran into the Spanish one on my morning commute and was ecstatic to see it being in the fields. So this public awareness campaign was launched by the District Attorney, George Gascon, and it included 1,000 ads on buses, as I've mentioned, and it ran in English, Chinese, Spanish, and the final language there is Russian. In addition to those campaigns, there was outreach efforts coordinated with local nonprofit organizations and ethnic media to get this message out. In the picture here, you see George Gascon out and partnering with a nonprofit, Self-Help for the Elderly, targeting the Chinese media. So if we look back at those key elements, we see that many of them were hit. They defined that they wanted to hit a diverse set of elders and tailored messages in their native language. The posters, if you notice, clearly call out, it's maybe a little small for folks to see here, but to call Adult Protective Services, provides them the phone number, lets them know the calls can be anonymous and that they are available 24/7. The district attorney partnered with nonprofit organizations to ensure that there was a trusted resource that was delivering the message. But it's important to know that this didn't come out of thin air, that there was a lot of work and relationships that were established to build up to this, which included having an elder forensic center, which I know we'll hear more about later today. So you already had a lot of the major players coming together to offer comprehensive solutions. Another example I'd like to provide is a documentary produced by the Elder Financial Protection Network under the leadership of then Jennifer Duane. And I'd like to recognize Jennifer Duane. She's here with us today, has been a leader in this field, is now in the Office of Older Americans with the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And Bank of the West partnered with EFPN to underwrite this documentary. It was titled Be Wise, Be Aware, Protect Elder Financial Abuse. It ran 5 times throughout 2010 on a local station in the San Francisco Bay Area. And what we did here was we featured the personal story of survivors so that they could tell firsthand what their experience was. And we coupled that with expert advice from a different range of fields. Pictured here, of course, is Jennifer Duane and Steve Alejo, who's the corporate security director at Bank of the West. And you can see some of the direct messages that were delivered were about contacting Adult Protective Services and actions that loved ones can take to ensure that the caretakers are not the abusers. So this still lives on the EFPN website, and I encourage folks to take a look at it. And again, this effort was not born out of thin air. It it was born out of a relationship that developed over many years, during which we would host Be Aware seminars. So we would host seminars for our customers as well as the public at large in coordination with EFPN, and talk to seniors about how they can protect their assets. In addition to providing them tangible information, we would have shredders on site so that folks could dispose of their sensitive material. And these went a long way in one, building community for our bankers with adult protective services and local law enforcement, and then also bringing in the general public into the benefits that being banked have. So these are services that banks can offer and encourage them to do that. So these consumer campaigns are important, but there's more that we need to do. And so even in the field of consumer education, we need to take a better look at what is truly effective and then identifying how to expand what's truly effective. In addition to this consumer education, it's important that there be specialized teams and training for related industries, and I've identified what some of the training looks like here for financial institutions. Our following speaker will go into more detail about the financial institution response, and during the Q&A, I hope to hear from you and from others about successful consumer campaigns that you've experienced in your markets. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Our next speaker is Diane Chevalier. She is the Vice President of Fraud Services Division of the Financial Intelligence Department of Comerica Bank. She currently is the Fraud Training and Awareness Program Director and is responsible for raising fraud awareness. I can't think of a better place for her to be today. She's always been active in the community with a variety of task forces, always focused on raising awareness and preventing financial exploitation of the elderly. Please welcome Diane Chevalier.
Is he putting it up or? Pardon me? Okay. I did push. Just small technical difficulty. Yeah, that's all my slides on one. It's a little small, but. I'm going to talk with or without them, so. Oh, here we go. Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's okay, not a problem. I would like to first really say how honored I am to be here today amongst everybody in this room and who also is listening to try and protect our parents, our grandparents, our aunts, our uncles, our friends, our neighbors, anybody that we know of. I have been in the financial industry for 33 years, and for the last 25, I've actually been trying to prevent financial abuse against everybody. But I can honestly tell you that I have not seen anything more egregious within the last few years in the crimes that are being committed against our elderly customers. We began to see a disturbing pattern somewhere around 2008. And we identified it, and I'm sure that you will agree, that it just started to grow. And what we've tried to do is we've really tried to protect as many customers as we possibly can. We've got a lot of ideas, a lot of things that have been talked about and that will be talked about later on today. We've tried to enhance what we try to do to our customers. And one of the things that I think is kind of ironic is, though, for the last 25 years I've tried to protect other people's mothers. And just recently I've realized that my own mother is having some difficulties. And I worry when she goes to the store, how much money she's giving to the clerks. I wonder, I worry about the mail that she gets. I worry about the phone calls that she's getting. So I guess to sum it up, I'm not only here from a financial institution perspective, I'm here for my mother as well. Our role in preventing and detecting financial abuse of the elderly is best described here, with the first being our primary role to protect consumers' assets and information. In order to do that, we employ many of the training initiatives that we were just discussing. We also place a high priority every day for all of our customers. It just seems, though, that this is increasingly important for the elderly as they begin to experience diminished cognitive ability, as we had just had spoke to. It's also important for us to make sure that our employees understand how this fraud occurs, why it is so successful, how to detect potential victims, and if we do suspect something, we need to make sure that we engage the appropriate agency to get our customer assistance. We have worked diligently within our community to establish community coalitions from several agencies, including prosecutors, APS, other financial institutions, law enforcement, community outreach services. We as a financial institution desperately need everyone on this list to get our customers help. The crime is not a one and done occurrence. Once a victim is identified, the problem doesn't just go away. It is possible that they've been a victim, as we've heard, of other types of abuse also. May be living in deplorable conditions, may have no money to improve their situation, and quite often they do not have the mental capacity or stamina to get help. As far as what I talk a little bit about the crimes that we see at the financial institution, as far as what we see two major categories that are distinguished by who the criminal is in relation to the actual elder. The first are those criminals that initially have no relationships at all with the victim. These crimes are committed every day against people of all ages, but there's a big difference from what we see each day. The victim may not know the criminal at first, but give it a few phone calls, a few emails, or letters, and they will have gained access into the elder's life, and before the victim knows it, they seem like a friend to them. This is the main reason why these crimes are so successful, and if you suspect a potential victim that may be lonely, homebound, or otherwise separated from society, perhaps even a bit confused, they become the perfect victim. And we see this all too often. When we are looking for frauds by unknown contacts, we need to consider the individual elder and specifically their account activity and demeanor. The first four red flags are things that we look for that would indicate a change in the way the customer transacts their business. Is it normal that the customer would take a lot of cash from their account and walk out the door? Or perhaps they initiate a wire transfer when their normal activity consists of monthly deposit and a couple of withdrawals for their household use. This is especially alarming if they have had a recently large deposit. What are the odds that the deposit was a counterfeit check? I'm thinking it's probably pretty good. The other red flags are more difficult for us to detect. These are the ones that would indicate a change in the behavior of the customer. With customers that we see so often, it is easier to know if Mrs. Smith seems a little disoriented or confused and may not know why she needs $5,000 in cash. In other customers, it may not be apparent, as we've just heard, that there is a problem. Another thing we encounter is an elderly person's right to make a bad financial decision. We've heard way too many times, and my staff will attest to this, to mind your own business, I can do whatever I want with my money. Now, unfortunately, we don't really stop there, but it is a problem. In these scenarios that we're talking about by acquaintances, in these ones, the elder customer has some sort of affiliation with the person that is harming them or stealing their money. We are all very well aware of the emotional complications that go along with these instances and how difficult it is to get help for the victim when we are now telling the customer that someone that they know, trust, and possibly love is stealing from them and treating them poorly. We try to be alerted to these issues when we have a concern for elderly customers. There's a lot more scenarios that I could discuss today, but I'm going to go over a few of the red flags that we would see on those by acquaintances. In our experience, when we have discovered a case of abuse that involves someone that the victim knows, the signs are very different. It's more difficult to ascertain if the person with the customer is really trying to steal from them or is looking out for their best interest. Most commonly, we would be looking for any obvious signs in the customer's demeanor or physical appearance. If one of our well-known customers comes in with a new acquaintance and exhibits behaviors such as unusually submissive, no longer communicates to our staff, and the other person dominates the conversation and will not let us talk to them, or sometimes when they may have been previously articulate and well-kept, they come in disheveled and absent of communication. There may be a dramatic shift also in the way the customer does their banking, such as using a debit card for the very first time. Perhaps they have a brand new web banking account. Or even more, we're seeing a little bit more is when they come through the drive-in. Obviously, coming through the drive-in does not allow us to have any, personal contact with the elder. We do try and ask them to get them into the office, but quite often they'll drive away. But we don't stop there either. It's hard to get rid of us if we think there's a problem. The other things that we continue to see are changes in the customer's account profile. When changes, especially to joint ownership, are requested by our customer, we're not always in the position to determine if the customer fully understands that the person they're putting on their account has full access to their accounts. Now, having said that, most of the transactions that we see are fully authorized and show a willingness to an acquaintance or a family member to help and protect our elders from harm. Unfortunately, it's a very complex challenge for us to determine comprehension from our customers. Determining if our customers have the mental capacity to make rational decisions is a big challenge. And now I'd like to share a few things or other challenges that we see in the financial institution when we're trying to prevent elder abuse. The first one, convincing a victim that they are really being taken advantage of. We've already said numerous times this morning that that's sometimes very difficult for everyone to do. In one case, we did have a customer that fell victim to a lottery scam 6 times. And $100,000 later, and despite us and her family members desperately trying to convince her it was a scam, she truly believed that the 400 phone calls that she got were legitimate. And by this time, these criminals had become her friends, and she really enjoyed the companionship that they were giving to her. And that can be repeated over and over again. We also see cases, where the customer is their worst enemy. That's the worst enemy is themselves. They are making extremely bad decisions and giving their money to others without really understanding and comprehending what they are doing. Eventually, they will deplete all of their savings and be faced with personal hardship. This is also an example of trying to assess the cognitive ability of the customer today, and further complicated by the fact that it may be different tomorrow or the day after or the next time that we actually see that individual in the banking center. Very difficult to know what we should do each day to try and protect our customers. As discussed early by Rebecca, staff training is extremely important. It does pose some challenges, though, to keep all of your staff members up to date on the newest type of crime that's being committed against our elders, especially since there's no common set of indicators that we can train our employees on. We use case examples and everything that we know, but it does change every day and every year. It also goes without saying that the customers, whether they have full capacity or deteriorating capacities, have a right to their privacy. Our biggest challenge is when there's an account that has a sole owner, or if they have a joint owner who does not want to get involved. All too often, this is what we see and hear when we reach out to them and ask them for their help for their parent, their elder, their cousin, whatever. So what are we to do when what are we to do when we think someone needs assistance, but not even their own family cares? We cannot just turn our back and pretend it will go away. The last thing I would like to mention is the timeline in which we can actually obtain assistance for our victims. As evidenced by all the people in this room and around the country, people care and want to help. It is not just that easy, though, and takes many different agencies to provide the protection of our elderly. Everyone is working as efficiently as possible with our given resources, but exploitation comes with a sense of urgency. the longer it takes to get the victim help in their situation, the more money they lose, the more money or the more abuse they may suffer, and the worse the outcome may be. Just to recap, a few things that I would encourage all financial institutions to do for their part to prevent financial exploitation. Educate, educate, educate. I can't tell you how important that is. And you know, I'm never opposed to talking in the grocery line to somebody who wants to talk about elder fraud, or in the gas station. You know, if anytime somebody wants to listen to me, I'm more than happy to talk about how to prevent financial exploitation of our elders. As we've already talked, knowing your customers obviously is a very important part to the extent that we can do that. Also consider having a specialist that keeps up to date on all the things that are going on in the areas to address the problem. We actually have a elder fraud team with one specialist on staff, and her job is mainly to keep abreast of all the laws and regulations that are going in the multiple states that we operate, to make sure that we have service providers in each state to help our customers. Lastly, I can't stress how important it is to have great relations with your community support agencies. If you really want to help your customers, detecting a victim is merely the start of the solution. I participate in 2 local county task forces in Michigan that get together regularly to provide a coordinated response to providing assistance. As a financial institution, we can do our best to detect exploitation and fraud and manage the problem. But it does not provide relief for our customers if they are in need of a decent place to live that is free from their abusers and may need financial oversight. As individual companies, we forge relationships with our local agencies, but we have a really long way to go. I can't thank you enough for allowing me to speak to you today, and I encourage everyone to be bold and be relentless in protecting our vulnerable adults.
Thank you so much, Diane, and we appreciate the Twitter questions that are beginning to come in. I want to encourage you to continue sending them in, just as an announcement prior to our 4th panel speaker. And I want those of you in the audience here to begin to think about what your questions and comments may be as well. But now it gives me great pleasure to introduce Elaine Dodd, who has 22 years in law enforcement with the Oklahoma Bureau of Narcotics. Now she is the Vice President of the Fraud Division with the Oklahoma Bankers Association. She provides training and investigatory assistance focused on helping bank customers and retailers. She serves on the Oklahoma International Association of Financial Crimes Investigators. She's a charter member of the Coalition Against Financial Exploitation of the Elderly, called CAFE, and she's an active member of the Mafia, the Metro Area Fraud Investigators Association. So please welcome our Mafia.
Figure out which ways. Okay, good morning. I'm delighted to be here with you guys today from the Heartland, and I must say, thunder up, just for those of you who do follow NBA basketball. I know some of you are Floridians. I don't want to step on your toes, but really now, guys, our boys are so dear. Katie hugs his mama when he gets through playing. They're so great, and they're pretty good. So that being said, I don't want to take up any more time because this is such an important topic, and I am so honored to get to be here today. I've been sitting there in Oklahoma knowing that some of the things that we do, I think, are pretty doggone good practices. And so delighted to get to share them with you folks, because it's all about what our grandmas taught us. You get out there and you do the right thing. And we have a lot of our bankers and other folks in Oklahoma doing the right thing to protect our seniors. We're not catching all of them. We don't at all. That video that we saw earlier, that's my life every day, folks. I literally, Tuesday morning I got up, I was just thinking, okay, I'm going to get a gauge on this. Before I could get into the office, I had already talked on my little cell phone with 3 of our banks that had customers sitting in front of them that were trying to send out their money. So really now, guys, and just is a reflection of how wonderful our bankers are in catching it, and they hear from me all the time. So you're going to hear kind of how it works. It is a large part the cafe group. I say cafe just because it's more fun, but it is that group. But it is also it's our networking and how we work together. We have the only fraud division in a bankers association. I encourage the other bankers associations to do that. I do not know why they're not getting on board yet. I'm really pushing them because, folks, it makes a difference. And I have a slide just for the things that we do in addition to that to say, you really, guys, it's a great investment. But I've been doing this since 2003. When I came on, I was supposed to do investigations and training for the banks. That was my role. It became immediately apparent that it was our seniors that were the issue. And it became immediately apparent it was education, it was training, it was getting everybody to the table to do this together. So that's what I do. The rapport with law enforcement is a wonderful thing, and my last point on there is it's good to be old, really. I mean that, guys. I was raised, the bottom ones, the pictures you may not be able to see, I was raised in Blair, America, a little bitty town, and it was like Mayberry, and you could trust someone. Your word was your bond, and you could shake someone's hand and know it was true. That is what our seniors still believe. A lot of them are raised not even locking their doors, and it is these folks that are so vulnerable for that reason. The reason it is good to be old, I'll go back to that point, because you guys know, just as you're here and you're talking to folks, every day you collect people in your world, right? So the older we get, the more people we've collected. So how much good can we do with that collected group of folks? Here's a great example. My law enforcement buddies, they had to put up with me for, almost 30 years in law enforcement there. So I can call Mickey Perry, the chief out in Claremore, and I can say, hey, Mick, we have a lady who's going to have somebody come out to our house. I'm worried. Either she's in trouble, someone may be coming out, we need help here. If he were to say to me, as he has, I'm sorry, we are so busy. We are just absolutely swamped. We'll get on it later. We'll try. And I can say, hey, Mick, don't make me call your wife because I'll do that. It is all in the relationship. Seriously, I have done that. That is why we can get our law enforcement people to the table. In the past, we had, the banks aren't giving out information. Law enforcement is coming in and demanding stuff. Well, I'm a buddy to both sides. And so it is that commonality that helps us to bring them together. And we have such great relationships at this point in time. Our CAFE group, Coalition Against Financial Exploitation of the Elderly. And at one point I said, should we say elderly? Is that very nice? And someone said, Dodd, that's 50 and better. And I'm like, that makes me better. So I'm okay with that word in that group. It is comprised of a lot of groups. The Oklahoma Bankers are a big part of it. Our Adult Protective Services, we love our APS folks there. Ombudsman actually runs the group. Bill Whited is the person who does that. We have active law enforcement. They come to our meetings and staff cases. We have wonderful prosecutors, just bulldog prosecutors that are involved with us. The Senior Law Resource Center comes because they can help with the POAs. They help people to connect on guardianships and all the things we need. Our triad group is there. We also have some folks from the OU Geriatrics, some physicians who are doing research, and Securities has recently joined the group. So Irving Fott and our Securities folks are coming. We all train together. We also, Alzheimer's is another group that we're bringing in because we use a lot of their training. So it's all those folks who sit down together and say, hey, this is what we're seeing, this is how we're going to help it. And that is how the group works. We are nonprofit. There's no money that actually goes into it. Initially, there was a small grant. It was started by our district attorney in Oklahoma County, Wes Lane. He had put some funds, family money into it initially, but now we operate with no funds. It's just, it's the right thing to do. We do lots of training. Now, through that group and just in my position, I get to do lots of bank training. And it is the stories, guys. I had one bank who said, come to train in a short amount of time. I said, I can't do it. I need more. And they said, cut out the stories. And I'm like, no, it is the stories. It's the stories that resonate. And it's hearing those phone calls every single day. It's knowing this is what's out there. People are buying dinars today and think they're getting rich. It's that kind of stuff that you're hearing every day. We train also on our bankers on the SARs. We're trying to get the level of it up. I know there was a financial institution letter saying, let's get those SARs filed if it's financial exploitation. But I'll still have banks call me and say, well, we didn't really take a loss. What do you think? Get it in the system. I would like for us just to cover up the system with SARs from financial exploitation, because we're seeing the tip of the iceberg, folks. We are not seeing most of it. And even if our banks said everything that they were seeing, still not everything, but I think we should get it in the system. We train law enforcement. How do you get in the banks? We partner with people like Hobby Lobby, which is just one of our wonderful companies there, and they'll bring us in and they'll buy them lunch. So, you know, it's a great way to do it. Adult Protective Services, we train with them and by them so that we all know that our bankers need to be able, at least we're not saying you need to assess executive function, because there's a difference. There's capacity, there's executive function. Yes, I can shower and drive and have that, but I might not be making good business decisions. We need to get that into the minds of our bankers. We're not saying you figure that out on your own, but know that there's a distinction and have that dialogue with Adult Protective Services, and it's very healthy. We do lots of retail programs, lots of community groups, and the seniors that I talk to a lot of times don't want to be there. They're the kind of like, I don't know why we're at this luncheon. We really don't need this, every time. Afterward, every time they'll be coming up saying, Helen really needed that, you know. Always. And I go, oh, yes, and you help Helen. Here's what I want you to do. If you see those phone calls, if you see whatever, you be helping her. The media comes to us when they hear something. If they have a scam that's out there, we put a face on it, and that way the seniors know to be calling us. So it really is a fabulous loop of information, and our seniors are everything, folks. It's getting them trained and getting them to know what's out there. Again, the SARs, if something ain't right, we'd like somebody to get the things filed so we get it in the system. They are important and valuable. Adult Protective Services, we just adore them. And a piece of it, folks, is having those cell numbers. You know, I can call the FBI at night, and I can call Adult Protective Services in the middle of the night. I mean, there's nobody I won't call and say, we need it now. Because at the end of these things, if you guys have not been around someone that's really been scammed by it, they're going to push them and harass them for a time, and then they can get scary. I talked to one lady who was like, well, they're out in the parking lot with a sniper rifle. I'm like, no, ma'am, they are not in the country. It was an 876 number. I know where they are. They're not here, but they're scaring these people, and that's what's out there. Effective education, must-haves, get them in groups, get someone that has rapport with them, and it's about the stories, folks. I have people say, oh, well, our seniors can't sit for like 15 minutes or 30 minutes. Well, you know, some of us are 50 and above today. We've sat here pretty well, right? And our seniors, if you get them in a group, though, seriously, you start telling stories. I've had them stay an hour and a half where they're like, oh, tell us more. We need to really know this. It's wonderful. Include their families, because that's who's going to be taken care of. They have to know what's out there, and they have to be able to assess it. It's all about the networking. We get numerous calls from banks and customers every single day. It's educating law enforcement, the mafia group. That really is. And folks, being a member of that, it'll get you out of appointments. And, you know, I got a mafia meeting, though. Oh, yeah, go on. I'm serious. But it is our bankers, it is our law enforcement, it's those folks talking about the cases. It is too much fun. Reaching out to folks. We just have folks across this nation who are helping us on these things. And I also, another tool that I think is fun is to call the fraudsters in front of the seniors, because if they're not buying it, I can get this old boy in Jamaica, like the 876 calls. I got one on the line recently, and he was yelling at me, and I'm yelling at him, and the little lady's like, he's not very nice. I don't believe he is giving me my lottery money. No, he's not. But it makes an impression in their minds to be able to do that. Just a quick story. I have a dear friend, Ed, never met him. He calls me every other week, has been doing so for about 6 years. Every other week he'll say, Miss Dodd, I've got a new check, and this time I know it's good. I know this one is good. I'm like, Ed, no, it was never good. Don't make me get your wife on the line, because she helps me a lot on this. But the thing is that even after he knows we talk to these people, he knows and he's heard, 6 years later he's still calling me. So if he stops calling me, that tells me he's in trouble. That's what that's all about. We are, our financial institutions, all you guys who are dealing with these folks all the time, I liken it to AA. You know AA sponsors, and I'm not saying are you in AA, because it's a secret, anonymous, but I get that. But you know why they have sponsors, right? We've all watched the shows. We know why. It's to keep you from sliding. We are that to these people. We are that to people everywhere, to say, no, again, let's not do it. And you hold their hand because they're isolated, and you have to take care of them. If you can stop them before about 10 grand, you can probably stop them, maybe stop them. If you're over 10 grand, maybe not. The ego is so into it. It's what Dr. Mosqueda was saying. We had a gentleman who, he had started the bank in his community. Way smart guy. He was in for about $90,000. He stopped calling me. He was going to send another $240,000 to get his lottery wins because his ego had to believe. Sat down with him for about 2 hours. He finally burst into tears. 2 or 3 months later, he passed. Broken heart, I'm just telling you. I had an old boy who thought he was he's bringing in a wife from Ghana for 15 grand. He called me from the heart hospital. I mean, it's those stories, guys. It is a health issue. The numbers are epidemic. Our bankers, I believe, are wonderful to respond. One of the things that we do, and I hear a lot on, we've worked with the wonderful BITS folks on impediments. One of the things that I think we need to make a difference, and I kind of heard that from everybody today, we need a better ability to get the information out there. One of my friends had a case just last week. She's at a big bank. She has a grandma that has written about $85,000 in checks over about the last few weeks. She thinks that her granddaughter has medical bills, and she thinks she's paying for them. The same banker happens to know that the granddaughter is going to the casino every day. I mean, here's what we know, and how do you get in the system? Now, we did an SAR and got, or I suppose they might have done an SAR and got law enforcement out there. I know that can happen, but we need a system so that our people can feel like we can talk to family, or we can get somebody in there to help these folks. Training, we train our bankers at every presence. Our banks are happy to be a part of this initiative. We have wonderful tools. There is a Senior Sense video we did with our Adult Protective Services. It's a 23-minute video. I was afraid to put a link on here because it's on our website, and I thought I might tank that website if I put it on here seriously. So if you would like to see it, it's how to train bankers, how to separate, how to do great things. It's kind of old. It's about 5 years old, but still it is very, very current in the information. So you can email me or email Nicole over at BITS. She's been kind enough to say she would also give you that backlink so you can get it off the web, just not all at once. And Securities, Oklahoma Securities has wonderful information. I was talking to folks yesterday who knew Irving Fott, the Wells folks. They have an investedok.org that you can use that anywhere. It's not just Oklahoma specific. So use those websites. Go and out and get the information that you can. Senior Law Resource Center also has a great presence on the web. So it's everybody. It's all of us folks. I know I have taken a lot of our time here, but I'd just like to wrap up being able to say it is systemic. It's systemic. It's everybody. It's all of us trying to help to make this better. I believe, now this is Okie saying this, okay, I understand, but I would love to see our securities folks have Rex Lynn, who is an actor who does a lot of their commercials for them. I'd love for us to have somebody, it doesn't have to be Reba, guys, but you know, with all of us, we can get somebody fabulous that our grandmas will listen to and maybe get some kind of a media effort out so that they know how much of this is out there. And at the very least, guys, if folks are telling you mind your own business, I do believe, especially with seniors, it's hard to say this, but there is a point where you can wear them out. I had a grandma who was like 89, and I talked to her for about 45 minutes. The bank couldn't stop her. I mean, it's my money, give it to me. So I'm talking to her for about 45 minutes, and she finally said, honey, I'm 89 years old and I'm very tired. You have worn me out. And I said, well, okay, what can we do here? And she said, I won't go get that money if you'll let me get off the phone. I don't make these up because they're true stories, guys. So truly, you can wear them out. Now, I know I've taken a lot of the time, but thank you guys for listening, and thank you for letting me come.
Thank you so much, Elaine, and thank our panelists. And now it's your turn. And because I know many of you in this crowd today, and I know that you're not shy, and I know that we are running a little over, but we're going to take a little liberty, if that's okay. I'm going to ask Paul Smoser to go to the mic because he's from the Financial Services Roundtable, and I understand he has a comment or an announcement for us. And then I would ask you all to come to the mics, line up at the 2 mics in the room to ask a few questions. We have a number of Twitter questions that have come in as well, and we'll, in the time remaining, we'll do our best to engage with this panel.
Thank you, Edwin.
Paul.
I just wanted to follow up, and I think, Elaine, you did a great job kind of getting it set up with the BITS initiative that's been underway. BITS is a member of the, is a part of the Financial Services Roundtable, and as Steve Bartlett earlier indicated, you know, the financial services is doing a lot in this space. And BITS a couple years ago had actually started some work with our financial institutions about educating frontline employees, those who deal with the customers face to face, with regard to not only, you know, what the scams are, but what to look for and how to react to it. But as we've been prepping for this day, we put together a group that has involves not only financial institutions, but as well folks from law enforcement, folks from agencies, et cetera. Number one, to help get us to this day, so thank you certainly for inviting us to participate in that. But we're looking at the next steps, and the next steps really have started already to involve where are the impediments, where can we work more effectively together. Certainly part of that is within the financial services community to kind of spread the educational wealth that folks like Diane and Rebecca have shared with us today. You know, one of the joys of working for the Roundtable is that we work with a lot of really bright people in our member institutions. And the more important joy, I think, is that the folks that we work with are willing to share that information. So working with the folks who have the time and the resources to invest in education programs, they're also very willing to share that with a lot of the smaller organizations that don't have that time but need it to help their customers as well. So that'll be a next step to help spread that, but more importantly, to work with throughout the community in this ecosystem to identify ways that we can improve prosecution, ways that we can improve law enforcement awareness, and ways that we can improve financial services practices. So great opportunity, and we're happy to work with you. And actually, as I listened to the speakers today, there were some initiatives that were announced that I think we probably need to connect with a little more closely as well. So just thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you very much. One of our first questions that has come in is going to be directed to Dr. Mosqueda. It is, what can bank tellers do if even a doctor has a hard time telling if someone has some type of dementia?
I think that bank teller, we all have pretty good sense about things. And I think that people need to trust their instincts. And I have been so encouraged by hearing stories and meeting bank tellers who just, you know, it doesn't pass the sniff test. Something smells wrong. Something is wrong here. To trust your instincts and be willing and able to make a report. Now, I admit that we don't have a system that makes doing the right thing the easiest thing to do, and I think we need to move toward that. But I think that if bank tellers trust their instincts and report, it's not your job to decide if abuse really occurred. It's your job to say, I think something is wrong, and leave it to our colleagues in Adult Protective Services and law enforcement to do the investigation.
Thank you. I'm going to take one of the questions that has come in from Twitter. It is from Sarah Findley, and she asks that some great initiatives have been discussed today. Are older people included in developing these, and if so, how? Any of the panelists? Rebecca?
Sure, I would say that absolutely the elders are involved in developing some of the programs, particularly in their involvement with community organizations. We are responsive to our communities, so in many cases we go out to where our services are asked, and so the seniors are involved in developing what the agendas are, who's going to be involved, what they want to hear, and that's one way that they're tangibly involved.
Okay, and now I would turn to the gentleman at the mic.
Brent Neiser, I'm with the National Endowment for Financial Education. We developed the website myretirementpaycheck.org that has an anti-fraud section. I want to throw out an idea for consideration. This may exist, but there's a lot of parallel to child abuse, what I'm hearing, in terms of having the victim identify, label, and point out how they're being abused. And especially if it's a relative. Like, I can't call out my grandson, but if there were animations or pictures or something that they could see and say, that's me. Almost like a witness identifying somebody in a lineup. They're anonymous, they point, and then you know where to go.
I would agree with you totally. And one of the one of the coalitions that I am on is run by the judge that was doing the domestic violence and the child abuse unit previously. So you're absolutely right. And what we try to do is to make it easier and more comfortable for the senior to provide testimony. Perhaps, accompany them to the court, sit with them while they're in the outside waiting, tell them what's going to happen, because it is a very scary and unnerving fact to face your accuser, so we do try and take the consideration of the elder.
Thank you. This lady right here.
I'm from the financial industry. I'd like to ask you a two-part question. First, considering we've got the Justice Financial Coalition, this is exciting. So here, this question is sort of, your answer could help them. What do you see as some of the problems you have within the financial industry on sharing raw intelligence, timely raw intelligence on financial crimes? And if you could change anything on the current acts, privacy laws or any other area that could be changed to allow us to better share that raw, timely intelligence, what would you offer to the Coalition Council to think about?
And I would just mention that one of the questions we've gotten in on Twitter also relates to what laws are necessary.
I'm not sure I can say exactly what laws are necessary. We just need to improve the system where the financial institutions feel like they can't report if somebody else is not on the account. If it doesn't rise to the level of financial exploitation. If it rises to financial exploitation, they can do the SAR and they can get it into the system. Now, that's going to be going to your law enforcement folks who then are going to have to go to the family. It's maybe not as efficient. So I don't know that I know exactly what that law might be, but that is what we need that law to fix.
We have another question that has come in on Twitter from Betsy Cavendish. She asks, there are many signs of elder financial abuse. Will companies truly pause or proceed with their transactions? What will you really do?
We actually, in part of our training, obviously, as has been mentioned, we rely on our staffing to just alert us that there's an issue. Once we're alerted, we will act upon that information. We'll try and determine at that particular point if it's safe to proceed with the transaction with the elder, or if we need to perhaps delay it, or unfortunately maybe deny it or get someone else involved. And we will take that information. We will not just look the other way. We will continue to work with them until they get relief. And that's one of the issues that we need assistance with. Obviously, once we detect that there is a victim, we need help in getting that victim some assistance.
Thank you. Given the hour, there are three people standing at the mics, and you're the last three questions we have. Yes.
Thank you so much for sharing all of your ideas for best practices. I'm curious in terms of as banking is evolving and becoming less face-to-face and more sort of online more anonymous banking. How are you reimagining the ways that you will combat elder abuse or financial abuse in general, given that you're not sort of having that face-to-face, oh, I have a gut feeling that something's wrong, et cetera. What's your strategic thinking around that?
One of the things that we can do too, and it's one of the bits impediments that they're looking at, is a way to, I've lost, remind me your question in.
Sure, sort of as like the older adult of the future is probably going to be doing all their banking online. So.
I'm sorry, I had a senior moment there. The 50 and better. The thing is that we need to be able to maybe have programs. We have wonderful cyber programs now where we can look at in technology, we can look at patterns, we can look at things. The question is, can we look at things when it's seniors? Are we being fair to folks to side out that group? So that's one of the things that they're looking at, and I think your question is exactly right. If they're not in there, then you've got to be looking at patterns or something. And maybe we need some kind of ability to say, yes, we can look at patterns of specifically seniors because they are a vulnerable community.
And much of that work is already taking place in just corporate security and cybersecurity. And also we do specific education on identity theft when you're online, and we target that to seniors. So we want to make sure that they're aware that there's malware, that they should have antivirus softwares, that they shouldn't provide their information online, their social security number, to anyone who's asking it of them. So we do proactively provide that information.
James Dela Cruz.
Yes, thank you, Edwin. James Dela Cruz, Quinault Indian Nation, as well as chairman of the National Indian Council on Aging. Over 500 tribes in Indian country, we have these problems in our communities as well. In September 15th through the 18th, we'll be holding our biannual National Indian Conference on Aging. Hopefully, we can work out that we can get a presentation to our General Assembly and possibly breakouts on this issue. It does affect Indian country. Thank you.
Thank you. And yes.
I'm Stacy Sanders with the National Community Reinvestment Coalition, and we're growing increasingly concerned about foreclosure rescue scams and other housing-related scams and how they affect older adults. So for our bankers on the panel, I was curious the extent to which you're seeing this and also how this maps into your overall programming on financial abuse for seniors. Thank you.
We do keep a close eye on what's going on, because generally what's going on in the general public is just amplified when we start talking about our senior individuals. We have not seen too much of it, but we know it's out there, so that doesn't mean that we don't educate on them. And we've put it into our materials, and we talk about it. We really explain, to the elder, knowing, and most importantly, if they're going to embark upon a transaction such as this, that they know where they can go to get assistance beyond just the banking industry or the banker.
Well, thank you. And please join me in thanking this incredible panel.